Hey there. Tonight we're going somewhere dark. And no, I do not mean candlelit dinner romantic dark. I mean rat-infested, disease-ridden, hope-devouring dark. We are diving into the joys of a medieval prison, a place where even the bravest knights would rather be anywhere else. Not the glamorous dungeon of Hollywood with charming rogues and daring escape plans. No, just you alone, cold, shivering in filth. So before we start, hit like, subscribe if you find grim tales oddly relaxing, and tell me in the comments where and when you're watching this from. And now, plug in your headphones and set a comfortable volume. Let us begin. You're going to prison, and you're not going to like it. You do not know exactly when your luck soured so spectacularly. Perhaps it was that foolish outburst at the market after too many mugs of thin ale. Perhaps a jealous neighbor whispered lies to the local reeve. Or perhaps you truly did commit some minor crime. But in a world where the concept of justice is fluid at best, your innocence matters very little. What matters is who points the finger and who controls the guards. One muddy morning, rough hand sees you. You are dragged from your hovel with no explanation save for the barked words, by order of the bailiff. No rights, no recourse, no chance to plead your case. Your wrists are bound with coarse rope. A rusted iron collar is snapped around your neck, biting cold into your skin. You are paraded through the village streets like a prize hog bound for slaughter. The villagers jeer, spit, and pelt you with clumps of dung and rotting vegetables. Children run after the procession, shrieking with glee. You try to speak, to protest, but no one listens. Your voice is lost in the tide of mockery. Then comes the trial, if one dares to call it that. In a smoke-choked hall, before a weary, disinterested lord or a corpulent town magistrate with eyes only for bribes and favors, you are forced to kneel. The accuser speaks. Witnesses, if any, mumble vague words, motivated by fear, payment, or grudges. You are given no chance to mount a defense. The decision has already been made before you are dragged in. The sentence is swift. Imprisonment. For how long? No one says days, weeks, months, perhaps years if you are forgotten, perhaps until death. The court is silent on such trivial details. Rough guard sees you again, half carrying, half dragging you from the hall. The journey to the prison is short but harrowing. The streets grow narrower, the air thicker with the stench of waste and decay. Finally, you reach it, a squat, menacing structure of ancient stone, its narrow slits for windows more suited to a tomb than a dwelling. This is your destination. This is where men go to be broken, to disappear, to rot. An iron-banded door groans open on hinges slick with grime. The stench that wafts out is indescribable, a pungent miasma of human filth, stagnant water, mold, rotting straw, and the coppery tang of old blood. You gag, but a shove propels you forward. Inside, the light is scant, flickering from a few sputtering torches that barely pierce the gloom. Shadows move and twist unnervingly. A hulking figure lumbers into view. The jailer. His face is a map of pockmarks and scars. His greasy hair clings to his scalp. His breath reeks of sour ale and worse. Without a word, he produces a cracked ledger and scratches your name, or perhaps merely a crude symbol, into its pages. You are now an entry, a number, a body, no longer a person. Strip, the jailer growls. And you do. Shivering, you peel off your clothing under the watchful eyes of unseen prisoners lurking in the shadows. Your garments are thrown onto a heap of filthy rags. In return, you are given nothing. Naked, humiliated, trembling, you are led deeper into the bowels of the prison, barefoot upon slimy stone. And this is only the beginning. The door clangs shut behind you with a finality that leaves no doubt. You have entered a world where light, hope, and mercy do not dwell. You have survived the first hour. You will be fortunate to survive the first day. You stand before the gaping maw of the prison, a squat, ancient edifice of stone blackened by centuries of filth, its contours warped and pitted with time and neglect. No flags, no insignia, no attempt at dignity. The only decoration is a rusted iron ring above the door where, not long ago, the severed heads of executed prisoners were displayed for public amusement. Today, it hangs empty, save for a few stubborn crows. The door itself is a heavy slab of iron-banded oak, its surface scarred by claw marks, knife scratches, and other signs best left unpondered. It opens not with a courteous creak, but with a bone-chilling groan, the kind that suggests you are about to enter a place where screams echo unheard. The guards do not hesitate. One seizes your collar, the other pushes the door with a shoulder. A fetid blast of air strikes your face, cloying and sour, thick with the essence of unwashed bodies, rotting food, and centuries of human misery compressed into these stone walls. You gag involuntarily, earning a shove between the shoulder blades. The threshold is slick beneath your bare feet, worn smooth by generations of doomed men and women who passed this way. Beyond lies a dim corridor, walls, slick with condensation, the faint glimmer of torchlight revealing patches of green-black mold that crawl unchecked across the stone. You are not led politely. The guards march you at a brisk pace, iron-tipped boots echoing on stone while you stumble, half-blind, over unseen obstacles. Discarded bones, scraps of rancid cloth, puddles of liquid better left unidentified. The jailer meets you midway down the hall. He is not a man so much as a manifestation of the prison itself. Bloated with ale, face a ruin of old wounds and fresh boils. Teeth the color of grave dirt. His eyes flick over you with disinterest. You are not the first. You will not be the last. A guttural command is barked. You are hauled into a small antechamber, little more than a stone alcove reeking of old blood and sweat. This is the so-called reception. No friendly clerk, no comforting paperwork. Here, you are stripped of everything. Not merely clothes, but dignity, identity, hope. The guards work with practiced efficiency. Your bindings are cut with a dull knife. Your garments are wrenched from your body, torn if necessary, and flung into a heap already steaming with filth. You're prodded, poked, inspected like a slab of meat. Lice? Expected. Fleas? Standard issue. Open sores? Noted. Strength? Irrelevant. The jailer scribbles in a ledger with a broken quill. The ink smells of mildew, the parchment stained by unknown fluids. You cannot read what he writes. You suspect it hardly matters. You are reduced to a few marks on a crumbling page. No one asks your name. No one cares about your crime. In this place, you are merely a body, and an expendable one at that. A fetid bucket of water is dumped over you with no warning. It is neither cleansing nor refreshing, merely cold and foul, leaving you soaked and shivering. No towel is offered. No garment replaces what was taken. Naked, wet, and reeking, you are dragged through another iron door, this one thicker than the first and pitted with rust. Beyond it lies the true prison, a labyrinth of damp corridors, each darker and more suffocating than the last. As the door slams shut behind you with a reverberating clang, the jailer's voice echoes with grim amusement. Welcome. And in that single word, there is no kindness, only the certainty that you have passed beyond the reach of mercy. The deeper you are led, the more the air seems to change around you, as though the very walls of the prison are exhaling centuries of human despair into your lungs. What struck you first outside, the sour stink wafting through the entrance, was merely a foretaste. Here, beyond the second iron door, where light fades and the torches give way to wavering shadows, You take your first true breath of prison air. It is not simply foul. It is thick, viscous, almost alive, a choking blend of sweat, excrement, rot, blood, mildew, and a sharper note. The acrid sting of old urine soaked into stone and straw that no washing could ever remove. You try to hold your breath, but the body betrays you. You gag, then inhale sharply, and with that gasp, the essence of this place invades you. It coils in your throat, seeps into your nostrils, burns in your eyes. You can taste it bitter, metallic, clinging to your tongue. The corridor is narrow, damp, the walls slick with weeping moisture. You brush against them despite yourself, and your skin recoils from the cold, clammy contact. The stone is not clean. It is slimed with filth layered over generations, alive with crawling things too small to see. Overhead, the ceiling arches low, crusted with soot and webs, sagging ominously in places where the masonry has begun to rot. The torches are spaced widely apart and poorly maintained, their flames sputtering and throwing more shadow than light. You walk in near darkness, guided only by the harsh grip on your arm and the echoing steps of the guards. Each footfall slaps into the pooled water that seeps eternally through the flagstones, making it impossible to tell whether you walk on stone, slime, or something more organic. As you move deeper, the sounds of the place grow louder. It is a constant low chorus, a morbid symphony of coughing, groans, whispered prayers, muttered threats, the scurrying of countless rats, the occasional wet thump of something heavy striking stone. You hear the rattle of chains, the metallic scrape of bowls, and beneath it all, a background hum of suffering too constant to localize. The prison breathes. You can feel it in your bones. The very air is laden with moisture, as though the stones themselves sweat in sympathy with the doomed souls they contain. Your skin begins to itch, your throat tightens, your eyes sting and water. You want to vomit, but your stomach is empty, and the dry heaving only worsens your thirst. Breathing here is not a passive act. It is a struggle, a conscious decision to force each breath past the revulsion, to endure the assault of stench and disease that rides on every molecule of this fetid atmosphere. You are not alone in this torment. The prisoners you pass, vague forms in deeper cells and alcoves, wheeze and rasp in the gloom. Some hack violently, expelling phlegm and blood in fits that echo down the corridors. Others simply lie still, chests barely rising, skin pale or blotched with sores. The stink of sickness is overwhelming, a nauseating miasma of rotting flesh and infected wounds. No physician tends to these unfortunates. The prison is its own physician, and its only cure is death. Your body is already reacting. Your skin crawls beneath its own surface, as if the filth of the place is soaked into your pores. You feel the faint prickling of lice, the tickle of unseen vermin, though whether they're truly there or only imagined, you cannot say. You shiver, not merely from the cold, but from the sheer visceral wrongness of the air, the sensation of being slowly consumed by the prison itself. Every breath reminds you that you are not meant to survive here. You are meant to. Out. Ahead, the corridor opens slightly, not into a room, but into a wider, lower passage where the air hangs heavier still. The guards pause only to light another torch from a wall sconce, the brief flare of the flame illuminating the mold-veined walls and the skeletal remains of some small animal in the corner. The stink intensifies. You realize that this place has no true ventilation. The windows, if any exist, are mere slits, choked with grime. The air you breathe has circulated within these walls for weeks, months, years, recycled through the lungs of the dying, thickened by the decay of countless corpses, unrefreshed by any wind or sun. You have not even reached your cell, and already your lungs burn, your head swims, your vision blurs at the edges. A simple breath, an act of life, is here a weapon against you. You know instinctively that the longer you remain, the weaker you will grow, that the very act of drawing breath in this place will hasten your death. But you have no choice. You breathe, and with each breath, the prison claims you a little more. The corridor twists and narrows, the stone growing slicker with each turn, until it terminates in an iron-studded door swollen with damp. The jailer grunts, fumbles with a ring of enormous keys, selects one at random, or so it seems, and forces it into the rust-choked lock. There's a grinding protest, then a metallic shriek as the door swings open. The guards shove you forward, and you stumble across the threshold into your new home. Welcome to your cell. It is everything you imagined a medieval prison cell would not be, because even your darkest imaginings were too optimistic. The room, if one can dignify this space with the term, is little more than a stone box, scarcely large enough for the huddled mass of bodies it contains. The ceiling is low enough that you must stoop, the walls oozing with moisture, green-black with mold that grows in thick veins like the prison's own circulatory system. The floor is a patchwork of uneven stone, rotting straw, and compacted filth so dense it squelches underfoot. There is no bed, no cot, no pallet. Sleep in this place is not a right, but an act of desperate improvisation. The other inmates regard you with varying degrees of disinterest and predatory amusement. They do not move to make space. Why would they? Space is a luxury in here. You will sleep where you fall, if you sleep at all. The corners are already claimed by the senior residents. Gaunt figures with hollow eyes and ragged breaths who have learned which patches of straw are least saturated with filth. The center of the room is a morass of bodies, limbs entwined, flesh pressed to flesh not out of camaraderie, but from sheer necessity. You will wedge yourself among them or collapse in the doorway. Either choice will be equally uncomfortable. Above, a single ventilation slit, no wider than your palm, admits a trickle of damp air and a steady flow of rats. They scurry along the walls and ceiling beams, fat and fearless, their black eyes gleaming in the dimness. They know this place better than you ever will. You hear them constantly, the scratch of claws on stone, the occasional squeal as they fight over scraps or gnaw upon the less fortunate. You will soon learn to sleep through it. Or not sleep at all. There is no sanitation. The far corner of the cell, identifiable by the stench alone, serves as the communal latrine. The floor there glistens with a slick film of human waste, the air thick with ammonia and rot. Woe betide the prisoner forced to sleep too near that festering pit. But in this sardine tin of suffering, choice is a quaint fantasy. You will take whatever scrap of floor you can reach without provoking a knife in the ribs. The straw, such as it is, was once golden and dry, perhaps several seasons ago. Now it is sodden, matted with blood, excrement, pus, and the unidentifiable detritus of countless inmates who have come and gone. It crawls. You will feel it as soon as you lay down, the tickle of lice and fleas migrating eagerly to fresh flesh. They're the true rulers of this cell, more numerous and more resilient than any human within these walls. Sleep itself becomes a kind of dark comedy. You will spend hours attempting to position yourself in a way that avoids the worst of the filth, that minimizes contact with festering wounds or aggressive neighbors, that places your face where the stench is merely unbearable rather than life-ending. When exhaustion finally claims you, it will be a thin, restless sleep punctuated by coughing fits, the rasp of chains, and the occasional shriek from a neighboring cell. Dreams, if they come, will not. Be kind. And should you drift too deeply, beware. The rats are opportunists. Many a sleeper has awoken to the sharp agony of tiny teeth gnawing at exposed flesh. Fingers, ears, toes, all fair game. You will learn to tuck your limbs beneath you, to sleep curled like an animal, to jolt awake at the slightest rustle. It is a lesson that comes quickly, or not at all. In this place, the notion of comfort is absurd. Rest is a fleeting illusion. The floor is your bed, the straw your blanket, the vermin your constant companions. You will not awaken refreshed. You will awaken sore, shivering, and weaker than before, and each night will be a little harder than the last, for this cell is not designed to house the living. It is designed to prepare them for the grave. It does not take long to realize that the other prisoners in your cell are not merely background scenery. They are your new companions, your reluctant bedfellows, and, on occasion, your most immediate threats. Friendship, in this place, is not forged through kind words or shared interests. It is dictated by necessity, hierarchy, and the cold calculus of survival. And you, freshly dumped into this pit of human misery, rank at the very bottom. The first to take notice of you is a skeletal man whose face is more scar tissue than flesh, a map of ancient knife wounds and poorly healed infections. His grin reveals gums stripped of teeth, his breath a weapon more potent than any blade. He says nothing at first, merely watches you with predatory amusement, as though calculating how long you will last, and how much of your belongings, real or imagined, can be stripped from you in the meantime. Nearby, a pair of hulking figures occupy the choice corner opposite the latrine. Their bulk is not the product of health, but of bloat and hardened muscle, gained from years of bullying weaker inmates and consuming whatever extra scraps they can extort. Their eyes flick toward you only briefly, but the message is clear. That corner is theirs. Approach at your peril. One of them idly sharpens a rusted shiv on a stone. The sound is sinister counterpoint to the coughs and groans around you. Not all the cell's occupants are so physically imposing. One man, wiry, twitching, his eyes wide with feverish light, rocks back and forth, muttering to unseen figures only he perceives. The others give him space. Madness is common here, and contagious in ways that defy understanding. Another inmate, barely more than a boy, curls into himself, face turned to the wall, flinching at every sound. He is unlikely to last long. There is an old woman, too, or at least something that was once a woman. Her hair hangs in greasy clumps, her skin a patchwork of sores and bruises. No one speaks to her, and she speaks to no one. Yet her presence is tolerated. Rumors swirl in hushed tones, that she has survived here longer than any, that she knows the jailer's secrets, that those who cross her tend to vanish. You would laugh at such tales, but in this place, superstition is often safer than skepticism. As the hours drag on, you begin to understand the cell's social order. It is not written, but it is enforced with brutal efficiency. The strongest claim the driest spots, the choicest scraps of food, the meager privileges that exist. The weak cluster together, hoping for scraps of protection. The mad drift between factions, their allegiance shifting with the tides of their minds. And newcomers, like you, are fair game for all. You will be tested sooner rather than later. A shove, a stolen morsel, a whispered threat in the dark. The cellmates watch how you respond. Show weakness, and you will be prey. Show defiance, and you may be marked for worse. There is no winning move, only a grim dance of balancing submission and resistance, of enduring the inevitable humiliations while avoiding the fatal ones. Conversation is sparse and brutal. Names are rarely used. Why bother when the lifespan of a fellow inmate may be measured in days? Instead, Prisoners are known by nicknames, by crimes committed or rumored, by visible deformities or scars. You earn a name soon enough, whether you like it or not, and it will likely not be flattering. If you are fortunate, a relative term here, you may find a tenuous ally or two, inmates who value numbers over solitude, who understand that even the smallest shred of solidarity can be a shield. But alliances here are as fickle as the jailer's temper. Trust is a luxury no one can afford. Every hand that offers assistance today may hold a blade tomorrow. And so you sit, huddled among your new friends, each of you a link in a chain of misery, suspicion, and barely restrained violence. You are no longer an individual. You are one more mouth to feed, one more body to crowd the floor, one more participant in this grim theater of survival. You may not have chosen these companions, but you will learn to live among them, or you will die trying. If you thought hunger and thirst were simple discomforts, mild inconveniences to be endured until relief arrives, welcome to the medieval prison, where they are elevated to full-fledged instruments of torture, administered not with racks or hot irons, but with deliberate neglect and casual cruelty. Here, the provision of food and water is not governed by need or fairness, but by whim, corruption, and whatever passes for logistical planning among the jailers. You will quickly learn that the greatest feast in this place is the one you imagine in your head, and that the greatest drought is not outside these walls, but within your very throat. Meals, if they can be called that, arrive irregularly, once or perhaps twice a day, though the intervals are so erratic that you will soon lose all sense of time. They're delivered by a junior jailer, often a boy barely old enough to shave, who carries a battered bucket of some unidentifiable slop. The contents vary by season, by the jailer's mood, and by what can be scavenged or spoiled. Some days, it is a thin gruel made from barley husks and rancid fat. Other days, a stew of questionable origin, with floating lumps that may once have been vegetables or may not have. Meat, when it appears, is cause for suspicion rather than celebration. If you possess any wisdom at all, you will not ask its provenance. The bucket is plunked down in the middle of the cell, and what happens next is less a meal than a battle royale. There are no bowls, no spoons, no portioning. The strongest inmates lunge first, plunging filthy hands into the muck and scooping it greedily to their mouths. The weaker and slower are left to scrape the bottom, to lick the sides of the bucket, or to fight for drippings in the straw. You, as the newest and lowest, will be fortunate to taste anything at all in your first days. And, should you dare to contest a stronger inmate for a mouthful, expect swift and violent correction. As for water, that most basic necessity of life, it is provided even less reliably. A separate bucket is occasionally brought, filled with tepid, cloudy liquid drawn from a communal cistern of dubious cleanliness. Its surface often sports a thin skin of scum, and things sometimes float beneath. Insect larvae, bits of straw, the occasional bloated rodent that was not noticed in time. Still, when thirst claws at your throat and your tongue swells in your mouth, you will drink, you will not hesitate, you will gag, you will retch, but you will drink, because to refuse is to court death by dehydration, a slow, agonizing fate that even the most hardened prisoner dreads. There is, of course, a black economy surrounding food and water. The jailers know that starvation breeds desperation, and desperation breeds opportunity. A coin slipped through the bars, a favor promised, a secret whispered. All can purchase an extra crust of moldy bread or a somewhat cleaner draft of water. If you have means or connections beyond these walls, you might survive a little longer. If not, well, you will soon become intimately acquainted with the flavor of rats and the Nutritional value of straw. And let us not forget the rats themselves. In this place, they are both competitors and, on the most desperate nights, a potential food source. Fat on human waste and the flesh of the dead, they swarm the cell with impunity. The boldest among them snatch morsels from your very fingers. More than one prisoner, in the depths of hunger, has set crude traps to catch these vermin, roasted over a sputtering torch or gnawed raw in a corner. Rat meat is a delicacy here, though the risk of disease is ever present. But then again, what is one more disease in a body already riddled with them? So you will eat when you can, what you can, if you can. You will drink whatever is offered, however foul. You will learn to suppress your gag reflex, to chew without tasting, to swallow without questioning. And you will learn that in this place, hunger and thirst are not temporary states. They're constants, companions more faithful than any cellmate. They gnaw at your belly and claw your throat day and night, dulling your mind, sapping your strength, hastening your descent into the thin, ragged shadow of a human being. Bon appetit. Hunger is cruel, but thirst is the true torturer of this place. Hunger gnaws slowly, dulling your limbs, your wits, your will. Thirst, by contrast, is a sharpened blade, a constant assault that slices into your very being. And in the medieval prison, thirst is not an accident. It is a feature. Water is withheld, rationed, corrupted, used as leverage by jailers who understand that a parched tongue makes for a pliable prisoner. In your first hours, the dryness is a mere discomfort, a scratch at the back of the throat, a sticky film on the roof of the mouth. But the prison air accelerates the process. Thick with dust, spores, and unseen particulates, it draws moisture from your body with every ragged breath. The coughing begins soon after, a dry, hacking spasm that leaves your throat raw and your ribs aching. You will come to dread each cough, not merely for the pain, but for the fluid it expels, precious droplets. You cannot afford to lose. You will eye the water bucket with increasing desperation. Its contents, when present, are noxious enough to induce retching on sight. Yet even that revulsion fades as thirst tightens its grip. At first, you may hesitate, nostrils flaring at the swampy odor, skin crawling at the sight of floating debris. But soon, the calculus changes. It is no longer a question of if you will drink, but when. The moment will come when the mere thought of moisture on your cracked lips outweighs all concerns of filth or disease. And when you do drink, it will not sate you. The water is warm, thick, laden with unseen life. It sloshes in your belly like poison, yet leave your throat as dry as before. Worse, the act of drinking awakens a deeper thirst, a maddening craving that cannot be quenched. Your body, sensing contamination, may purge the liquid in violent spasms, leaving you more dehydrated than before. The irony is bitter. The more you drink, the thirstier you may become. As the hours stretch into days, the symptoms mount. Your tongue swells, becoming a cracked, leathery slab that barely fits in your mouth. Your lips split and bleed with every word, until you speak only in hoarse whispers, if you speak at all. Your eyes dry and blur, the lids heavy, every blink a scratch against grit-laden corneas. Your skin puckers, your urine darkens to a syrupy trickle, if you manage to produce any at all. The headaches begin soon after, dull throbs that bloom into skull. Cracking agony with each passing hour. You watch your fellow inmates with a new gaze, no longer wary of violence, but covetous of moisture. The sweat on another's brow, the damp of their breath, all become sources of terrible fascination. In the darkest corners of the cell, prisoners have been known to lick the damp stones, to wring filth-soaked straw in the hope of capturing a single drop. Some even resort to drinking their own urine, an act born not of madness, but of sheer survival instinct. And when that final reserve is gone, they wither swiftly. The jailers, of course, are fully aware of this dynamic. Water becomes a currency, a reward for obedience or a punishment for defiance. A few extra mouthfuls may be granted for a bribe, for information, or for the petty amusement of the guards. Conversely, those who offend may find their cell deliberately skipped on the next meager ration round. Such choices are made capriciously, without warning or recourse. You will learn that today's grudging gulp may be tomorrow's withheld torment. As thirst consumes you, rational thought erodes. Time dissolves. You cannot focus on conversations, on alliances, on survival strategies. Your world narrows to a single obsession: water. Every waking moment is ruled by it. Every flicker of hope dashed against the iron reality of scarcity. And all the while, your body cannibalizes itself, drawing moisture from organs, blood, marrow. You grow dizzy, delirious, staggering in the confines of the cell, lips moving in parched prayers to God's law, deaf to such pleas. In the end, should the thirst go unrelieved long enough, you will collapse, first to your knees, then to your side. The skin cracks, the breath wheezes, the pulse slows. Consciousness flickers like a dying torch. Around you, life in the cell continues, indifferent to one more shriveled form among many. Some may even pilfer your scant belongings before the final breath escapes your cracked lips. And then, when your desiccated corpse is finally dragged away, perhaps days later, the next newcomer will be shoved into the space you once occupied. And so the cycle of thirst begins anew, unbroken, unending, as it always has in this place. Drink well, if you can. By now, you are well acquainted with the concept of loss, of freedom, of dignity, of hope, and soon of clothing. The first stripping in the reception chamber was not a temporary indignity, but a permanent state of affairs. Here in the medieval prison, garments are a privilege, not a right, and newcomers rarely warrant such luxuries. Whatever rags you wore upon your arrest have been confiscated, tossed into a heap that likely serves as bedding for rats or barter for the guards. In their place, you have been granted precisely nothing. Welcome to the world of enforced nudity. You enter the cell as bare as the day you were born, save that infants do not arrive caked in filth, bruised, or shaking with cold. The chill of the stone floor seeps into your bones, the damp air raising goose flesh that quickly becomes permanent. Your skin, accustomed to the relative modesty of even the poorest garments, is now an exposed canvas for every crawling thing in the prison. Lice, fleas, and nameless mites that descend upon you with gleeful abandon. You will scratch until your skin bleeds, and then scratch some more because the itch never truly abates. Of course, total nudity does not last forever, but what replaces it is hardly an improvement. At some indeterminate point, when the jailer is feeling either charitable or opportunistic, you may be tossed a scrap of clothing. Not a fresh tunic or clean shift, but a ragged remnant salvaged from the belongings of a previous inmate. The provenance of these garments is best left unexamined, though the stains and stiff patches tell their own sordid tales. Blood, bile, excrement, all present, all baked in through repeated use without the benefit of laundering. The shirt you receive may have once resembled linen. Now it is a shapeless sack, yellowed to a sickly gray. It seems frayed, its fabric is thin as gauze in some places, crusted solid in others. It clings unpleasantly to your damp skin, offering no warmth and little modesty. The lower regions may be graced with a pair of breeches or, more likely, a tattered loincloth, held together by knots and sheer willpower. Footwear is a fantasy. Your feet remain bare, toughening against the cold stone, even as they crack and bleed with each unsteady step. And woe betide the inmate who loses even this pitiful garb. Clothing, such as it is, serves not only to cover but to signify status. Those with the least ragged attire are often the most dangerous, having fought or bribed to acquire their relative finery. To be stripped once more, whether by an opportunistic cellmate or a malicious guard, is to plummet further down the social ladder. Nakedness invites predation, both literal and figurative. Nor is clothing a stable possession. The cell's communal nature means that garments change hands frequently. Fights break out over a relatively intact tunic. Alliances are forged for the sake of a less foul-smelling rag. Even the dead are swiftly stripped, their meager wardrobe divided like spoils of war. You will witness and likely participate in these grim transactions because the alternative is to freeze and bleed upon the stones. Hygiene, needless to say, is non-existent. Washing your clothes is an impossibility when water is scarce and jealously guarded for drinking. The fabric absorbs the filth of the cell, of your own body, of every surface you brush against. Sores fester beneath the damp folds. Rashes spread unchecked. The stench becomes part of you, seeping into your very pores. You will cease to notice it, but only because your senses will gradually deaden in self-defense. And through it all, the guards watch with idle amusement. They know full well the state of your attire, and they revel in the spectacle. On rare occasions, a particularly sadistic jailer may toss a new garment into the cell, a bloodied shirt from an execution, a plague-ridden cloak, just to see who will scramble for it. Desperation ensures there are always takers. So when you ask, "What am I wearing?" the answer is simple: a badge of degradation, a shroud of disease, a second skin of filth. It may offer the illusion of humanity, but it does not conceal your reality. Here, clothing does not define status, survival does, and every stitch you manage to keep upon your body will be a small, grim victory in a place where even that cannot be taken for granted. If the air does not kill you, the food does not kill you, the thirst does not kill you, fear not. The diseases most certainly will. This prison is not merely a place of confinement. It is a breeding ground, an incubator for every pestilence the medieval world has to offer. You have entered a living laboratory of contagion, and participation is not optional. You are already enrolled in the grand lottery of death, and the odds are delightfully stacked against you. The symptoms begin early, often within the first days. A cough that rumbles deep in the chest, spreading thick mucus with each hacking spasm. At first, you think it is the damp, the mold, the filth, and you're not wrong. But the prison is generous. It provides more than just discomfort. Soon the cough turns wet, flecked with blood, the first herald of consumption. You will not be alone. The cell rings with the chorus of the tubercular. Each cough a fresh spray of infectious mist. Privacy is non-existent. Personal space is a fantasy. Every breath you take is shared, recycled from the failing lungs of your fellow inmates. But tuberculosis is merely the opening act. The true stars of this charnel house are far more varied and inventive. Skin diseases flourish in the damp and squalor. Boils erupt on your flesh, angry and suppurating, their rancid contents staining what remains of your clothing. Sores refuse to heal, festering with each passing day, attracting flies and worse. Fungal infections creep beneath your nails and across your feet, reducing skin to cracked leather and raw, weeping flesh. And should you be fortunate enough to escape these afflictions, the lice will see to your misery, their bites raising endless welts, their droppings infecting the broken skin. Then there is the pox, in its many delightful forms. The prison sees no distinction between venereal and non-venereal strains. Syphilis flourishes here, its stages playing out in ghastly procession. Chancres, rashes, the wasting of flesh, the erosion of sanity. Madness is a common sight. Prisoners babbling, shrieking, tearing at themselves in fevered delirium. Whether from syphilis, untreated wounds, or sheer mental collapse, the result is the same. One more broken body twitching on the filthy floor. Unless you think the danger's confined to the flesh, remember the rats. They do not simply steal food or gnaw on the unwary. They're vessels of plague. They're fleas, merry carriers of Yersinia pestis. When the Black Death comes, and it always does, it rolls through the prison like a firestorm. One day you will hear the telltale groans and see the swellings beneath a cellmate's armpits, in the groin, on the neck. The buboes harden, blacken. The fever follows. Within days, sometimes hours, the body stiffens, the breath ceases, and another corpse joins the pile. No isolation follows, no quarantine. The dead lie among the living until someone remembers to drag them away. And by then, of course, it is far too late. You will watch this cycle repeat again and again. The strong fall as swiftly as the weak. No one is immune. No one is spared. You will mark the progression in your cellmates. The deepening cough, the yellowing eyes, the tremors and wasted limbs. You will see the rashes bloom, the sores weep, the skin slew away. And all the while, you will wonder, is that ache in your joints just the cold, or the first sign of something far worse? The irony, of course, is that in this place, illness can be a perverse mercy. The fevered are often spared the worst of the prison's daily torments, left to curl in their filth, ignored by both guards and inmates alike. To be too sick to move is to become invisible. And for many, this is the only respite they will ever know. But it is fleeting. The final stage is always the same. A still form, cooling amid the straw, one more cadaver to feed the vermin and spread the rot. And yet you will cling to life. You will scratch, cough, and wheeze your way through the days, nursing wounds that will never heal, drinking tainted water, eating contaminated scraps. Because even in this pit, the instinct to survive is stubborn, absurd, and darkly comic. You will play your part in the great lottery of death, knowing full well that the house always wins. By now, you have come to terms with many unpleasant facts. The filth, the hunger, the thirst, the constant risk of disease. But perhaps you still cling to the quaint notion that at least you will share your misery with fellow human beings alone. Disabuse yourself of that fantasy. In this place, your true neighbors are not the coughing wretches pressed against you in the dark, but the creatures that skitter, scurry, crawl, and feast upon the detritus of human despair. You will come to know them more intimately than you ever wished. The rats are the first to introduce themselves. They are the dominant species here, fat and sleek from generations of unchecked breeding. These are not timid barn mice or squeaking pets. They're bold, ruthless survivors, their beady eyes glinting with malice and low, brutal intelligence. They move with alarming speed and confidence, weaving through the bodies in the cell as if they own the place, which, to be fair, they do. You will see them everywhere, balancing on beams overhead, darting across your chest as you sleep, gnawing at discarded bones in the corners. At night, their presence becomes impossible to ignore. The scratching of claws on stone is a constant lullaby, joined by the occasional shrill squeal as they fight amongst themselves. You will feel them brush against your skin, their wiry fur abrasive and cold. Should you be so foolish as to leave any morsel of food unsecured, it will vanish within moments, along with anything remotely edible, including your own extremities if you are not vigilant. Many a prisoner has awoken to find a toe, bloodied, an ear ragged, a fingertip gnawed raw by tiny teeth. The sensation of being nibbled upon in the dark will haunt your dreams, assuming you are lucky enough to sleep at all. But rats are not your only companions. Lice make their homes in your hair, your clothing, such as it is, and your very flesh. Their bites raise angry welts that itch incessantly, driving you to scratch until you bleed. The scratching opens wounds. The wounds invite infection. The infection invites fever. And so the circle of misery continues. Fleas join the parade, hopping merrily from rat to man and back again. Vectors of plague and torment. You will never be free of them. They are part of you now, passengers on your slow journey toward decay. And let us not forget the lesser vermin. Cockroaches thrive in the cracks and crevices, their shiny bodies emerging en masse whenever food, or what passes for it, is present. They scuttle over your limbs with impunity, indifferent to your attempts to swat them away. Bedbugs infest the straw, though calling it bed is generous. You will feel their bites in the night, tiny punctures that swell and burn. Spiders spin their webs in the corners, fattened on the abundant insect life. Some are harmless, others less so. Either way, you will learn to coexist with them, as you do with all the other inhabitants of this charming ecosystem. Even the walls themselves seem alive. Mold blooms in vivid patches of green, black, and yellow. Its spores thick in the air. You breathe them with every labored gasp, feel them settle in your lungs, lining your throat with invisible filaments. The damp stones sweat constantly, streaked with slime that nourishes colonies of nameless organisms. You will see worms and larvae wriggling in the filth beneath the straw, and if you are desperate enough, you may even consider eating them. The hierarchy of this prison is clear. Rats at the top, followed by lice, fleas, and roaches. Humans come somewhere below that, little more than mobile hosts for parasites and occasional sources of amusement for the jailers. You will adapt, as all do. You will learn to sleep with one eye open, limbs tucked beneath you to deter curious rodents. You will shake out your clothing obsessively, though it will make little difference. You will scratch until your skin is raw, curse the vermin aloud, and then curse yourself for wasting breath. And through it all, the rats will watch you, eyes gleaming in the shadows, whiskers twitching with anticipation. They are patient creatures. They know that in time, every prisoner weakens. Every corpse feeds them. And one day, if you remain here long enough, they will feast upon you too. It is not personal. It is simply the way of things in this charming little corner of the world. Sleep tight. Up to this point, you may have comforted yourself with the thought that your fellow inmates, equally wretched and suffering, might form some kind of miserable brotherhood, a shared hardship, a grim camaraderie against the cruelty of the jailers. Let me disabuse you of that notion at once. In this place, kindness is a liability, compassion a quick route to exploitation or worse. The prison thrives on violence, not as a sporadic eruption, but as a constant undercurrent, as integral to daily life, as breathing. And like the air you breathe, it is thoroughly contaminated. There is no formal hierarchy here, no neat system of ranks. Power shifts with strength, cunning, and sheer brutality. Alliances are fluid, betrayals frequent. What passes for order is enforced by the oldest, strongest, or most violently insane inmates, self-appointed enforcers who rule through fear and fists. Disputes are inevitable for space, for scraps of food, for fleeting privileges, or simply because boredom demands blood. You will witness these conflicts daily, and sooner or later, you will participate, whether you wish to or not. The weapons of choice are whatever comes to hand. A shard of bone, a length of iron chain, a sharpened spoon, a well-placed knee or elbow. Even bare hands suffice when desperation fuels the blow. A fight can erupt over a crust of bread, a stolen rag, an insult muttered in a fevered delirium. Sometimes it happens for no discernible reason at all. A glance misread, a cough misinterpreted. Violence here is not rational. It is reflexive, instinctual, a predator's response to a cage too small and too full of prey. And when the blows land, they land without restraint. Teeth are broken, noses flattened, ribs cracked. The stone floor offers no mercy to a fallen head. There is no intervention from the jailers. On the contrary, they often encourage the spectacle, wagering among themselves or tossing provocations into the cell like meat into a pit of dogs. The fights continue until exhaustion claims the combatants, or until one ceases to move, whichever comes first. Do not imagine you can avoid this grim ballet by keeping to yourself. Isolation invites attention. Alone, silent prisoner is an irresistible target for bullies and opportunists. You will be tested, poked, prodded, challenged. Show weakness, and you will be bled dry. Of food, of scraps, of dignity. Resist too fiercely, and you may find yourself the subject of a group lesson in humility, administered with cheerful malice by multiple fists and boots. The trick, if there's one, lies in navigating the narrow path between victim and threat, in projecting just enough hardness to deter casual predators while avoiding the ire of the true wolves. And sometimes the violence is not born of human hands at all. The madness that festers here manifests in sudden, terrifying bursts. A prisoner howling like an animal, biting, clawing, driven beyond reason by disease or despair. Such frenzies are met not with aid, but with swift, brutal suppression, by other inmates if necessary, by the jailers if the chaos threatens their precious semblance of order. You will learn to recognize the signs, to edge away from the doomed soul whose eyes glaze, with fevered light, whose muscles tense in murderous preparation. Then there's the unspoken toll, the scars you cannot see, the constant tension, the anticipation of attack, the knowledge that sleep invites assault. You will sleep lightly, one eye half open, muscles coiled even in fitful rest. You will flinch at sudden movements, at shouts, at the sound of keys jangling in the corridor. Trust will wither. Every kindness offered will be weighed for hidden motives. Every conversation parsed for subtle threats. You will become a creature of reflexes and instincts, honed not for survival in the world beyond these walls, but for endurance within them. And yet, amid this endless grind of violence, life persists, fights erupt and subside, broken bodies mend or do not, newcomers arrive, the weak are culled, and the dance begins anew. You will adapt, or you will perish, and in time, you may even find yourself raising a fist without thought, striking preemptively, a reflex born not of malice but of necessity. In this place, violence is not the exception. It is the rule, and you, like all here, will obey it. You may have harbored, somewhere in the shrinking recesses of your optimism, the quaint idea that those tasked with guarding the prison, men sworn to uphold law and order, might at least provide a modicum of structure, a buffer between you and the chaos of your fellow inmates. How sweetly naive. In truth, the jailers are not guardians. They are apex predators in this ecosystem of suffering, and unlike the rats, they wield power with full awareness and unrepentant malice. The presence offers no safety. On the contrary, their attentions are often the greatest danger of all. They are a varied lot, the jailers. Some are veterans of past wars, their bodies scarred, their minds hollowed by violence. Others are local thugs elevated to petty authority through connections or bribes. None were chosen for their compassion or moral fiber. If they possess such qualities once, The prison has long since bled them dry. What remains is a cadre of brutal, opportunistic men who see their charges not as human beings, but as livestock, to be herded, beaten, exploited, and when useful, bled for coin or amusement. The jailer-in-chief, a hulking, pustule-ridden man known only as Master Goric, rules with the subtlety of a warhammer. His moods shift with the winds. One day he may ignore the cells entirely, too deep in his cups to bother. The next, he prowls the corridors with a heavy club in hand, seeking some unlucky soul to vent his bile upon. His lieutenants follow suit, competing in cruelty to curry favor. To these men, the prisoners are both sport and revenue. Bribes flow freely, extracted under threat of beatings or worse. A coin buys cleaner water. 2 coins might secure an extra scrap of bread. A gold piece? That might earn you a night unmolested, but only might. Those without means, and that is most of you, endure whatever whims the jailers choose to indulge. Beatings are common, administered with relish and creativity. The flat of a blade, the butt of a spear, fists, boots, all tools of the trade. Punishment may be meted out for imagined offenses for entertainment or simply because the jailer stubbed his toe that morning. There is no appeal, no recourse. A prisoner too injured to stand is dragged to a corner and left to rot. And then there are the darker amusements. Late at night, when the torches gutter low, the guards grow bold. Drunken laughter echoes down the corridors as they play their games, forcing prisoners to fight for scraps, staging mock trials with grotesque sentences, subjecting the weakest to unspeakable degradations. Sexual violence is rampant, its victims chosen at random or as punishment for defiance. The jailers act with impunity, for who will stop them? The law into the prison gate. Yet even in this hell, the guards maintain a perverse order. They're the arbiters of life and death, the keepers of the thin line between existence and oblivion. A word from a jailer can secure a better place to sleep or consign you to the filthiest corner of the cell. They decide who receives treatment for wounds, who is left to fester. They control access to the rare moments of sunlight in the exercise yard, to letters from the outside world, to visits, should any soul still care enough to visit you. You will learn quickly to read their moods, the shuffle of boots, the tone of a barked order, the way a key ring jangles. All become signals to your wary ears. You will cringe instinctively at their approach, your body tensing for the blow that may or may not come. You will practice the art of invisibility, hoping to escape their notice entirely, though this too is dangerous. The jailers despise cowardice as much as defiance. It is a delicate dance, one you must master if you hope to endure. But do not delude yourself. There is no friendship to be found here, no bond of understanding. The jailers are not your allies. They are the wolves at the edge of your pitiful herd, circling, waiting, teeth bared. You are meat to them, nothing more. And in this place, meat spoils quickly. If you believe that women fared any better within these walls, disabuse yourself of that comforting delusion at once. The medieval prison is no respecter of gender, and whatever horrors befall the male inmates, their female counterparts endure all of them, and more. For in this place, being a woman is not merely a disadvantage. It is an invitation to exploitation, a mark that sets one apart as prey among predators. There is no grand architectural division here, no noble notion of separate but equal accommodations. Space is dictated by availability, by overcrowding, by sheer indifference. In some prisons, a single cell is grudgingly set aside for women, a dark, cramped hole that overflows with the sick, the pregnant, the battered, and the mad. In others, women are thrown in with the general population, left to fend for themselves amid a sea of leering eyes and grasping hands. In both cases, the result is the same: degradation without end. The charges that bring women here are as varied and as flimsy as those of the men: theft, debt, adultery, witchcraft, the sin of bearing a child out of wedlock, or simply being inconvenient to the wrong man. No proof required. A whispered accusation, a bribe in the right pocket, and a woman finds herself dragged through the same iron doors, stripped, catalogued, and abandoned to the mercy of her captors. There is no one to protest on her behalf. In many cases, her incarceration is a sentence in itself, the trial of forgotten formality. And mercy is a scarce commodity in this place. The jailers view female prisoners not as charges, but as chattel. Their attentions are immediate, invasive, and relentless. A woman's body becomes currency, a tool for survival, or, more often, a prize to be taken at will. The guards come at night, drunk, laughing, keys jangling. Doors open, protests are ignored, cries are muffled. In the morning, bruises bloom across pale skin. Eyes stare blankly, and the cellmates look away, powerless and complicit. Among the inmates, the dynamic is scarcely better. The stronger women, if such distinctions can be made in a place that drains strength so swiftly, form loose alliances, protection pacts forged in desperation. They band together, sleep in tight knots, take shifts watching the door. But even numbers offer limited defense against guard with clubs and keys. And should a woman fall ill, grow weak, or be left alone, the predatory calculus of the cell turns swiftly against her. The men who share her cell, if she is so unlucky as to be housed among them, will see her vulnerability as opportunity. In this pit, consent is a forgotten concept. Pregnancy is no shield, but another curse. The swollen belly marks its bearer for ridicule, abuse, and further exploitation. Medical care is non-existent. The birth itself, when it comes, is a spectacle of agony performed on filthy straw before an indifferent audience. Many do not survive it. Those who do are faced with the bleak prospect of raising a newborn amid filth, disease, and constant threat. Infants rarely live long in such conditions. Their cries fade quickly, swallowed by the greater chorus of misery. And should child survive, it, too, is a prisoner, born into chains, marked from its first breath by the sins, real or imagined, of its mother. The law offers no clemency, no recognition of innocence. The child's life is as grim as any adult's, its days measured in gnawed bones and cold stone. For those who endure, the only currency left is submission to the guards, to stronger inmates, to whatever bleak bargains can be struck for a few more mouthfuls of food or a place to sleep beyond the reach of groping hands. Some women adapt, harden themselves, become players in the prison's brutal economy. Others fade, their minds fracturing under the strain. The madwomen haunt the darkest corners, muttering to themselves, hair matted, eyes wide and unseeing. They're no longer prey, only wraiths pitted and feared. And all the while, the cycle continues. New faces arrive, old ones vanish. The guards smile their knowing smiles, pockets jingling with coins extorted from those desperate enough to buy a fleeting reprieve. There is no escape, no justice, no end. In this place, being a woman is not a separate fate. It is simply another layer of horror atop an already bottomless pit. If you imagine that your days in this delightful establishment will be spent merely languishing in filth and fending off vermin, allow me to introduce you to another charming feature of medieval justice: the interrogation chamber. For in this place, imprisonment is not punishment enough. You are here to confess. ideally to as many crimes as possible, whether or not you committed them. And should your tongue prove stubborn, well, the jailers have a wide array of persuasive techniques at their disposal. The summons comes without warning. One morning, or what passes for morning in the timeless gloom, the heavy door of your cell groans open, and two guards loom in the threshold. They speak no words, offer no explanation. Rough hands seize you, drag you bodily through corridors you have never seen, deeper into the bowels of the prison where the air grows colder, the stones slicker, the silence more oppressive. You pass rooms whose contents you can only guess, doors from behind which issue muffled screams or the sickening crunch of breaking bone. It is not a tour designed to inspire confidence. At last you arrive, the torture chamber, though of course no one calls it that. Officially, it is a place of inquiry, of justice, of truth-seeking. In reality, it is a butcher's shop. The room is large, its stone walls darkened by centuries of spattered blood and bodily fluids. The air reeks of iron, of sweat, of scorched flesh. Chains dangle from the ceiling, their ends rusted and worn. A rack squats in the center, its wooden frame stained and groaning. Tables hold an array of tools, pincers, knives, branding irons, weighted clubs, screws of ingenious cruelty. Each is polished with use, a testament to the tireless pursuit of confessions. Your interrogator awaits, a man whose cheerful title of Inquisitor belies a professional enthusiasm for human suffering. He greets you with a smile that chills the marrow, a smile that says he has all the time in the world and that your pain is merely a pleasant diversion in his otherwise dull day. You are bound, wrists, ankles, neck, and the questions begin. What are you accused of? Does it matter? Perhaps theft, perhaps heresy, perhaps consorting with witches or demons or enemies of the crown. The list is flexible, expandable. The goal is not to uncover truth, but to obtain a confession. The Inquisitor asks, you deny. The first blow falls, perhaps a slap, perhaps the twist of a thumbscrew. You cry out, and already you have lost. For every sound you make, every flinch feeds his resolve. And so the dance begins. You are stretched upon the rack, your joints popping, ligaments tearing. You are suspended by the wrists, your shoulders wrenching from their sockets. Hot irons kiss your flesh, leaving charred, bubbling brands. Knives trace delicate patterns across your skin. Nails are pried from fingers and toes. You beg, you scream, you curse. The Inquisitor remains impassive, taking notes in a neat, looping hand as if recording the ingredients for a pleasant stew. Your answers matter little. Denial brings more pain. Confession brings temporary respite, followed by demands for further names, further crimes. No matter how much you confess, it will never be enough. The Inquisitor's ledger is a hungry beast, always demanding more. If you accuse others, they too will be dragged here in turn. And should they survive, they will remember who named them. And do not think that innocence will shield you. In fact, the innocent often suffer more. They lack the practiced lies of career criminals, the hardened tolerance for pain. Their bewildered protests only amuse the Inquisitor, who delights in breaking their will. In the end, all confess. It is a foregone conclusion. The only question is how long you will hold out, and how much of yourself will be left when you do. When the Inquisitor tires of his sport, or when your body can endure no more, you are dragged back to your cell. You return broken, burned, bleeding, a spectacle for your fellow inmates. They do not ask what happened. They already know, and they also know that tomorrow, it may be their turn. The knowledge festers in the air, a miasma of fear that clings to the walls thicker than the mold. And so the wheel turns. There is no end to it, no justice, no redemption. Only the endless pursuit of confessions, of new names to fill the inquisitor's books, of fresh bodies to stretch upon the rack. You entered this prison as a prisoner. You emerge from the torture chamber as something less, a creature flayed of dignity, of certainty, of self. But take heart. You are still breathing. For now. By now, you have surely abandoned any hope of cleanliness. But let us linger a moment on the topic of hygiene, or rather, its utter absence, for it is one of the prison's most refined forms of torment. In the outside world, even the poorest wretch can scrape a basin of water, a rag, a moment of privacy. Here, such notions are the stuff of fevered dreams. You will not bathe. You will not wash your hands. You will not so much as rinse your mouth. Your filth is your second skin, and you will. Wear it until it kills you. The cell offers no facilities beyond its four slimy walls. There is no wash basin, no water jug, no cloths. Water itself is a scarce and precious resource, guarded fiercely for drinking, however foul. To waste even a drop on cleansing is unthinkable. Those few inmates foolish enough to attempt it soon find themselves parched beyond endurance, regretting their moment of vanity. And so the grime accumulates, day by day, layer upon layer, a matted tapestry of sweat, blood, excrement, and whatever else the body exudes under stress and malnutrition. You will feel it first in your hair, which stiffens into greasy ropes, alive with lice. They itch incessantly, their eggs clinging to each strand, hatching in joyful waves. Your scalp weeps beneath the onslaught, crusting over with sores you dare not scratch too deeply for fear of worse infection. Your face follows suit, a mask of oil and filth. Your eyes itch, your lips crack, the corners of your mouth fissure with each grimace or attempted smile. Not that you will find much cause for the latter. And then there is the body proper. Your armpits become cesspools, breeding grounds for boils and rashes. Your groin fares no better, a swamp of chafed, weeping skin, crawling with fleas and worse. Between your toes, fungal infections take root, reducing flesh to cracked, bleeding ruin. Your nails thicken, yellow, blacken, curve grotesquely. The stench is indescribable, a rank, sweet, suffocating cloud that clings to you, follows you, becomes you. You no longer notice it. Others do. Defecation is a communal affair. One corner of the cell, typically the furthest from the most powerful inmates, serves as the latrine. There is no pit, no drain. Waste piles upon waste, swarming with flies, maggots, and vermin. The floor slickens with it. The stench permeates every breath. You will learn to relieve yourself swiftly, eyes darting, wary of attack even in this most vulnerable act. There is no wiping, no washing. You return to your place fouler than before, as does everyone. Menstrual hygiene, for the women unfortunate enough to endure it here, is a separate hell. There are no cloths, no respite. Blood stains the straw, the rags, the skin. The smell mingles with the rest, attracting further attention from vermin and guards alike. Dignity dies swiftly. As for your clothing, that pitiful rag you cling to, it is never cleaned. It absorbs everything: sweat, waste, blood, rot. It stiffens, blackens, tears. You will wear it until it disintegrates or is taken from you, leaving you naked once more. There is no replacement. The lucky might scavenge from the dead. Skin disease is inevitable. Rashes, sores, ulcers, they blossom across your body in grotesque patterns. You will scratch until you bleed, your fingers too filthy to offer relief. Each wound risks sepsis. Your joints stiffen, your limbs ache. You feel yourself rotting alive, and you are not wrong. And all the while, the guards watch and laugh. They know the power of filth, how it breaks spirit as surely as chains. They sometimes dangle the promise of water, a bucket, a cloth, as reward or bait, but such offerings are rare and come at a steep price. For most, the choice is simple: embrace the filth or die fighting it. You will embrace it. You will have no choice. In time, you will forget what clean skin feels like, what it means to smell of anything but decay. You will become a creature of the pit, indistinguishable from your fellow wretches, save by the particular bouquet of your own filth. And when you finally die, as you surely will, the jailers will drag your corpse from the cell with bare hands, unbothered by the stench. For here, you are filth, and in filth, you will end. By this point, you may already feel that your body is no longer truly your own, and you would be correct. In the medieval prison, ownership of flesh is a contested affair, and no contenders are more persistent than the parasites. They're the true masters of this place, the silent citizens who thrive where human beings decay. You do not merely share space with them. You serve them as host, as habitat, as endlessly replenishing feast. The lice arrive first, for they are omnipresent. They infest your hair within days, assuming they had not already taken up residence during your arrest or your joyful reception of the prison gates. They breed with alarming speed, each egg hatching into a fresh torment. Your scalp becomes a battlefield, a constant war of itching and scratching. You claw at yourself until your skin bleeds, only to find that the blood provides nourishment for the next wave. And it is not just your head. Lice spread to eyebrows, armpits, groin, chest. Anywhere hair clings to skin, they march in legions across your body, and resistance is futile. Closely following are the fleas, brought in by the ever-helpful rats. They hop with gleeful abandon from vermin to man and back again, sipping blood as they go. Their bites raise fierce, red welts that burn and itch, and they're prolific to a degree that beggars belief. You will awake each morning peppered with new bites, each one an entry point for infection. The fleas, of course, care little. They will gorge themselves on your blood and move on, fat and sated, leaving you weaker, sicker, and closer to collapse. And then there are the bed bugs, though again, the term bed is a cruel jest here. They dwell in the straw, in the seams of your clothing, in the cracks of the stone walls. By night they emerge to feed, creeping across your skin with the lightest of touches. Their bites cluster in neat lines, trails of crimson misery that map your helplessness. No part of you is safe. They are tireless, insatiable, and impossible to eradicate. You will come to dread the onset of darkness, knowing full well that each night brings another feast upon your flesh. Nor is the assault confined to the surface. Beneath your skin, new horrors await. Scabies mites burrow into your flesh, laying eggs that hatch into legions of tiny invaders. The tunnels they create itch with a ferocity beyond reason. You will scratch until you tear muscle, until you sob in sheer frustration, until your cellmates curse you for the noise. The resultant sores ooze and fester, inviting further parasites and the ever-present cloud of flies. They, too, play their part, laying eggs in open wounds. You may awake one day to find maggots squirming in the cavities of your own body, a sensation that words can scarcely convey. Even your innards are not spared. The water you drink, the food you choke down, all are laced with invisible life. Worms of various species take root in your gut, sapping your strength, bloating your belly. You will feel them writhing within you, a sinister mockery of life. They compete with you for nourishment, ensuring that no matter how much you eat, and that is precious little, you grow ever thinner, your ribs stark beneath diseased skin. And yet, amid this carnival of infestation, A grim hierarchy persists. The prisoners speak of lice and fleas with weary resignation. They are constants, companions in misery. Bedbugs are hated but endured. Worms, invisible, are cursed in muttered prayers. But it is the scabies and the maggots that inspire true horror. When these take hold, when a man begins to rot alive from within and without, he is marked, a pariah even among the damned. There are no remedies here. No ointments, no salves, no clean cloths or boiled water. You may beg the jailers for relief, but at best they will laugh. At worst, they will offer you a pail of urine to bathe in and charge you for the privilege. Most prisoners simply succumb. Their bodies become patchworks of sores and infestations, their minds eroded by constant discomfort. Sleep is a fleeting, tortured thing, dreams haunted by phantom crawling. Waking offers no reprieve. And all the while, the parasites thrive. They outlive you. They migrate from corpse to living flesh and back again, an endless cycle of consumption. In this prison, you do not fight them. You accommodate them. You become a walking colony, a mobile banquet. And when your strength finally fails, when your breath rattles its last, your parasites will mourn you not. They will merely move on to the next host. For in this place, there is always another. Of all the things this place takes from you, freedom, dignity, health, the basic comforts of the living, there's one theft more insidious than the rest. The theft of time itself. In the medieval prison, time does not pass. It dissolves, stretches, collapses in on itself like a rotting carcass. You'll soon learn that the outside world, with its neat divisions of hours and days, of sunrises and sunsets, is a foreign land to which you no longer belong. Here, the sun does not reach you. The seasons are indistinguishable. The flow of time is dictated by hunger, thirst, and pain, and all three follow a rhythm entirely their own. There are no clocks, of course, no bells to mark the hours. The single ventilation slit, if your cell is so luxuriously equipped, admits only a pale, uncertain light that shifts with the weather and the whims of the jailers. More often, your world is lit by guttering torches, their uncertain flames casting shadows that dance and twist, leaving you unsure whether minutes or hours have passed between flickers. You will strain to hear the changing of the guard, the distant echo of boots in the corridor, the clank of keys, any sound that might suggest the passage of time. But such sounds blend into the monotonous symphony of suffering until they lose all meaning. At first, you will attempt to count the days. You will mark the damp stone with a fingernail or the point of a stolen bone, scratching tallies into the wall. But your efforts will falter. Hunger confuses the mind. Fever clouds it further. Sleep becomes fragmented, punctuated by coughing fits, by the shrieks of the tortured, by the scuttling of rats across your prone body. You will wake unsure whether you have slept an hour or a day, whether it is dawn or midnight. Dreams and waking blur. Together, nightmares bleeding into the flickering half-light of your cell. Conversations with fellow prisoners offer no clarity. They, too, have lost the thread. Ask one how long they have been here, and you will receive a blank stare, a muttered guess, a shrug of emaciated shoulders. Some will swear they've been imprisoned for months, only to learn, if they ever do, that mere weeks have passed. Others will claim years, though they have aged mere seasons. Time is a personal torment, different for each inmate, distorted by suffering and isolation. Your body does not help. Without the sun, your circadian rhythms collapse. Sleep comes in fits and starts, dictated more by exhaustion than by any natural cycle. You may find yourself awake for what feels like endless days, only to collapse into a stupor that lasts. Who knows how long? Hunger gnaws without regard for time. Thirst is a constant. The body's signals are all out of tune, a discordant symphony of need and weakness. Even your memories of time outside these walls grow dim. You will struggle to recall the day of your arrest, the season, even the year. The faces of loved ones blur. Their voices fade. Madness, too, is shaped by this temporal void. Prisoners drift into fugue states, trapped in loops of thought and speech. Some pace endlessly, counting invisible hours with each step. Others rock back and forth, murmuring the same phrases as though tethered to a moment long past. The lucky ones lose all sense of time entirely, existing in an eternal present of filth and pain. The unlucky retain enough awareness to feel each dragging second, each interminable minute, stretch to the breaking point. And when, if, you are summoned for interrogation or trial, the shock of the change will nearly break you. The corridor outside your cell will seem too bright, too loud, the faces of the jailers too strange. You will stumble, blinking, unable to gauge how long you have been caged. Days? Weeks? Months? The jailers will not tell you. They find your confusion amusing, another small cruelty in their arsenal. In the end, you will cease to measure time at all. You will live moment to moment, driven by base needs, to eat, to drink, to avoid the next beating. The concept of tomorrow will lose its meaning. The word future will become hollow. You will exist in a state of endless now, trapped in a world where nothing changes but the level of your own decay. And when, as often happens, a fellow prisoner slumps and dies beside you, you will wonder not how long they suffered, but merely who will be next. Time does not flow here, it rots. By now, you may have realized that the medieval prison is less a place of confinement and more a waiting room for the grave. Death is not an occasional visitor here. It is a constant companion, an unavoidable feature of the landscape, as much a part of the cell as the stone walls or the fetid straw beneath you. It comes in many forms, swift or slow, loud or silent, but always it comes, and when it does, no one is surprised, least of all you. You will smell it first. The scent of death is a heavy, cloying thing, distinct even amid the stench of filth and rot that saturates every inch of the prison. It is the sickly sweet tang of flesh beginning to spoil, of blood gone sour, of breath that no longer stirs the air. When a prisoner near you sickens, and they always do, you will notice the change. The rasping breath, the glazed eyes, the skin taking on a waxy pallor. You will watch them with a detached sort of curiosity, wondering whether this is the day they will slip away. When they do, it is rarely dramatic. One moment they are coughing, gasping, clawing weakly at the lice-ridden rags that cover them. The next they are still. No cries, no final words, just a slow slackening, a silence that speaks volumes. And then the body remains, cooling amid the living, another obstacle to step around in the already overcrowded cell. There is no immediate removal. The jailers do not rush to collect the dead. Why should they? The corpse poses no inconvenience to them. If anything, it serves as a grim reminder to the rest of you. You will learn to ignore it, or try. The first time, perhaps you will recoil, gag at the sight of bloated flesh, of eyes clouding over, of the inevitable swarm of flies that descends within hours. But repetition breeds numbness. The second, third, 10th time, you will barely glance up. The dead are simply part of the scenery now, another piece of detritus in a room already overflowing with it. You will eat beside them, sleep beside them, step over them on your way to relieve yourself. The line between living and dead grows thin in a place where so many are barely clinging to life. And of course, death is not always natural. Violence claims many. A beating gone too far, a knife slipped between ribs over a crust of bread, a sudden frenzy from a prisoner driven mad by fever or despair. The result is the same: a body left to rot. The guards, when they bother to notice, may haul it away eventually, or not. Sometimes they leave it as a warning, a grotesque centerpiece for the cell. See what happens, their smirk seemed to say, to those who forget their place. There is no dignity in death here, no rights, no prayers. The dead are stripped, if they were anything worth taking, and dragged unceremoniously through the corridors. Their destination? A pit, more often than not, or a makeshift charnel heap behind the prison walls. There they join countless others, nameless, forgotten, consumed by rats and the slow work of decay. No one marks their passing. No one remembers their names. They vanish as they lived, in filth and obscurity. And yet, for all its horror, death holds a strange allure in this place. You will see it in the eyes of the long-suffering, those whose bodies are broken beyond repair. They do not fear the end. They welcome it, even seek it, a final escape from the endless hunger, the crawling parasites, the lash of the jailer's whip. You will hear them whisper prayers for release, or simply cease eating, letting their bodies wither faster. When they go, it is often with a sigh of relief, a release from the torment that the rest of you must continue to endure. But you will cling to life because that is what humans do. Even when every breath burns, when every joint aches, when each new day brings only fresh misery, you will persist, because as long as you are alive, there is still some flicker of defiance, some stubborn refusal to surrender. You will watch the corpses pile up and tell yourself, not today, not yet, but deep down, you will know that your turn is coming. In this place, it always is. The only question is how long you can hold it off, and whether anyone will notice when you finally fall. In a place where filth reigns supreme, where disease and violence lurk in every shadow, and where death is more reliable than the jailers, you might assume that faith would wither, that belief in anything beyond these crumbling walls would be abandoned as so much childish nonsense. And yet, paradoxically, the more the body is broken, the more the soul reaches desperately for something, anything, to explain the torment or to offer the faintest hope of escape. The medieval prison, for all its horrors, is a fertile ground for prayers, for superstitions, for the fevered embrace of gods both familiar and entirely invented. It begins innocently enough. The first time you see a fellow prisoner cross himself before choking down a mouthful of vermin-infested gruel, you think little of it. A habit, perhaps. The remnants of a life once lived beyond these walls. But as days turn to weeks, or what pass for such here, you will witness more. Men muttering psalms beneath their breath, clutching crudely carved crosses of bone or wood. Women tracing protective symbols in the air before they sleep, as if a gesture could ward off the rats or the jailer's wandering hands. In the absence of reason, ritual flourishes, and soon you will find yourself drawn in, not because you believe necessarily, but because belief becomes a kind of currency, a shield against the abyss. You will repeat prayers you scarcely remember, bargain with saints whose names you can barely recall. Grant me one more day, one more breath, and I will. The bargain never matters because no one here expects to keep their word. It is the act of speaking that soothes the illusion of control in a world that offers none. Of course, not all faith here is orthodox. In the suffocating dark, new gods are born, strange and nameless. You will hear whispers of the Rat King, a spirit who controls the vermin and to whom offerings of crumbs or blood might earn a night's peace. Others speak of the Lady of Bones, a pale figure glimpsed in the corners of fever dreams, said to grant painless death to those who call her thrice. Whether these beings exist is irrelevant. In a place where reason has no foothold, belief becomes its own reality. The jailers naturally encourage this descent into superstition. A desperate, divided population is easier to control. They mock the prayers, desecrate the makeshift shrines, but they also stoke the flames. It is not uncommon for a guard to slip a talisman to a favored prisoner, a knotted string, a bone charm, in exchange for obedience or entertainment. The item holds no power, of course, save that which the mind bestows upon it. And in this place, the mind is a fragile, malleable thing. Some prisoners take their faith to extremes. You will see them kneeling in the filth for hours, eyes closed, bodies swaying as they chant. Others flagellate themselves with strips of cloth or wire, seeking to purge sin through pain. A few claim visions, speaking in tongues, declaring that angels or demons walk among the living. Whether these are true revelations or the products of fever and madness is impossible to say. In this place, the line between the sacred and the insane is paper thin, easily torn. And what of you? You will scoff at first, of course. You are sensible, grounded, but hunger gnaws at logic. Pain erodes skepticism. One night, as you lie curled in the cold stone, lies feasting on your blood, breath shallow with fever, you will find yourself whispering to the darkness, to God, to the saints, to any power that might listen. You will promise anything, believe anything, if it means one more dawn. And when that dawn comes, if it comes, you will whisper thanks. The cycle begins anew. In time, you may even come to view the prison itself as a kind of purgatory, a divine test. Why else would such suffering be permitted? Surely, endurance here must earn some reward beyond these walls. Or so you will tell yourself, because the alternative that this is all there is too terrible to contemplate. Faith, in the end, is not about truth here. It is about survival, a fragile thread clutched by trembling fingers in the endless dark. It will be tempting to think that in a place so stripped of dignity, humanity, and material comfort, the notion of an economy would be meaningless. But where there is life, however degraded, there is barter, and in this pit of filth and despair, commerce thrives in its own grotesque way. The medieval prison has its own markets, its own currencies, its own crude mechanisms of supply and demand. And as a new arrival, you will quickly learn that survival is as much a matter of navigating this economy as it is of enduring the physical torments of your cell. Forget gold and silver. Though coin may pass through the hands of jailers within the cells themselves, it is useless. The true currencies here are those things that address the most immediate primal needs: food, water, warmth, space, protection. A scrap of relatively unspoiled bread can command more influence than a purse of gold. A sip of drinkable water can earn loyalty or invite violence. Even a slightly cleaner rag of clothing holds value beyond imagining. Information, too, is a commodity. News from the outside, whether a real update or an invented rumor, can be traded for food or favor. So can knowledge of the guard's routines, of which inmates can be trusted and which should be feared. Gossip is a form of coin, and its worth rises with its rarity. The jailers, of course, sit at the top of this sordid hierarchy. They control the flow of goods into the prison, and more importantly, the distribution of those goods. A guard might, for a price, slip an extra crust of bread into the cell, or a slightly less rancid portion of gruel. For a higher fee, they might turn a blind eye to certain transactions or grant a prisoner temporary access to a less crowded corner of the cell. And for those with true means, perhaps a family member still, capable of bribery, the jailers can arrange luxuries beyond the imagination of the common inmate. A blanket, a flask of wine, even a moment of privacy. Among the prisoners, trade is constant and cutthroat. Food is the primary currency, but anything of perceived value can enter circulation. A bone with enough marrow left in it, a lice-free patch of straw, a splinter of metal that might be honed into a weapon. Services are traded as well. Protection can be bought, for a time, from stronger inmates. Information is sold in whispers. The sharing of body heat on a cold night might cost you a promised share of tomorrow's meager meal. And of course, there is a darker side. Flesh is a commodity here, too. Women are forced into transactions for protection, for food, for simple respite from violence. Even among the men, desperate bargains are struck. The strong exploit the weak, and the weak, in turn, prey upon those weaker still. There is no shame, because shame is a luxury long since abandoned. Debts are dangerous. To owe in this economy is to invite ruin. A missed payment, a broken promise. These can lead swiftly to violence. You will see it. A man beaten senseless over a single bite of bread. A woman maimed for failing to repay a favor. Reputation matters here. Fragile though it is, to be known as one who cheats or defaults is to paint a target upon your back. Yet even in this cesspit, alliances form. Small groups band together, pooling resources, offering mutual protection. Such arrangements are fragile, built on necessity rather than trust, but they can mean the difference between life and death. You'll be wise to seek such an alliance, though wiser still to prepare for its inevitable collapse. And through it all, the jailers watch, amused. They understand that this economy serves their interests. A prison busy with trade is a prison too occupied to revolt. A prisoner desperate for favor will serve their whims. And should the economy become too unstable, they can reset it with ease. A search and seizure, a sudden crackdown, a brutal reminder of who truly holds power. In the end, you will participate whether you wish to or not. To abstain is to starve, to freeze, to die alone. You will trade, you will bargain, you will lie and steal if need be. And when you finally succumb, as all here do, your remaining goods will be stripped from your corpse, traded anew in the endless cycle of this grotesque market. In the medieval prison, economy is not about wealth. It is about survival. And survival, as you have learned, comes at any cost. You might imagine, in some naive corner of your festering brain, that visits from the outside world might offer a glimmer of hope, a fleeting respite from the unrelenting misery that defines your days. Perhaps a loved one will arrive with a kind word, a morsel of food, a reminder that life still exists beyond these stone walls. And indeed, the prison does allow for visits. But as with all things here, they're twisted, corrupted, another layer of torment carefully designed to mock your dwindling humanity. First, there is the matter of permission. You cannot simply receive visitors. No, a petition must be filed by someone outside who still remembers you, still cares, still has the means and connections to navigate the jailer's labyrinth of bribes and bureaucracy. And even then, there are no guarantees. The jailers are under no obligation to honor such requests. They grant visits when it suits them, when their pockets are sufficiently lined, or when they desire a bit of entertainment at your expense. Should a visit be approved, you'll be dragged from your cell, assuming you are still capable of standing, and brought, shackled and filthy, to a small chamber near the entrance of the prison. It is no parlor. The room is bare stone, the air scarcely fresher than that of your cell. A crude bench serves as your seat. You are chained to it to prevent any ill-advised attempts at escape or, more likely, at embracing your visitor. The guards hover nearby, eyes gleaming, eager to eavesdrop on every word, to leer at every display of emotion. And then the visitor arrives. It is a surreal experience, seeing a face from the world beyond, clean, or at least cleaner than any you have seen in weeks or months, eyes wide with horror at the sight of you. For you will be a spectacle, gaunt, scabbed, crawling with lice, clothed in rags, stinking of rot and despair. Whatever image they held of you will shatter in an instant. The reunion, such as it is, will be awkward, stilted, filled with unspoken horror. Words will falter, tears may flow. And through it all, the guards will smirk, enjoying the show. As for what a visitor can bring, well, that too depends on the generosity of the jailers. Food, clothing, medicine, all are theoretically permitted but subject to inspection. In practice, the guards will confiscate anything of real value for their own use or resale. What crumbs remain might reach you, if the guards are feeling magnanimous or sufficiently bribed. More often than not, a visitor will leave believing they have helped, unaware that their offering has already vanished into a jailer's pouch. And then the visit ends. You are dragged back to your cell, the brief glimpse of the outside world leaving a bitter aftertaste, for it changes nothing. You remain in the pit, and now the contrast between your wretched existence and the relative freedom beyond these walls will gnaw at you. Some prisoners are strengthened by such visits, clinging to the hope of eventual release. Others break, their spirits crushed anew by the reminder of what they have lost. Not all prisoners receive visitors. Many are too poor, too forgotten, their families dead or estranged. For them, the spectacle of a visit is a source of jealousy, of bitterness. Fights have broken out over a single prisoner's rare good fortune. The rumor of a forthcoming visit can provoke violence, as rivals seek to steal whatever goods might be received. In such an environment, a visitor can become a liability rather than a blessing. And so, over time, the practice withers. Fewer requests are made. Fewer visitors come. The guards prefer it that way. Fewer opportunities for outside scrutiny, fewer witnesses to the prison's true nature. You, too, will cease to hope. If by some miracle a visitor arrives, you will face them with hollow eyes, knowing that whatever warmth they bring cannot pierce the chill that is settled in your bones. In the medieval prison, visits do not bring freedom. They bring reminders. And in this place, some things are better forgotten. If you were under the charming impression that imprisonment alone constituted your punishment, it is time to revise that quaint notion. In the medieval prison, incarceration is merely the baseline, the starting point of your misery. The true artistry lies in the additional punishments meted out within these walls, administered not by judges or magistrates, but by jailers and, occasionally, by your fellow inmates. These are not acts of justice, but of control, of entertainment, of sheer arbitrary cruelty. A grim daily theater in which you will, sooner or later, play a starring role. The most common punishment is, of course, the beating, simple, direct, endlessly versatile. A misplaced word, a slow movement, a look that offends a jailer's delicate sensibilities. All can earn you a swift application of fists, boots, or clubs. These are not ceremonial affairs, but brutal assaults designed to maim rather than merely discipline. Broken ribs, shattered teeth, concussed skulls, all are regular features of life here. The jailers wield their cudgels with the casual expertise of men long inured to the sound of snapping bone. For those whose infractions, real or imagined, warrant a more formal response, there is the iron collar, a ring of cold metal locked around your neck, weighted or spiked, forcing your head into an unnatural posture. You will wear it for hours or days, unable to lie down, each movement sending fresh waves of agony through strained muscles. The collar marks you visibly, signaling to all your reduced status, inviting further abuse from guards and inmates alike. Then there is the chain, a length of iron affixed to ankle or wrist, secured to a wall or the floor, Chained prisoners are left in awkward positions, unable to move freely, their limbs swelling with constricted blood flow. In winter, the iron bites with icy teeth. In summer, it burns against sweat-slicked skin. The longer the confinement, the greater the damage. Flesh chafes away, infection sets in, joints stiffen permanently. Release is rare and often comes only when the body can no longer sustain life. For those deemed particularly troublesome, there is the hole, a euphemism for the dank, lightless pits beneath the main cells. There you will be thrust without food, without water, without even the miserable company of your fellow inmates. The air is stale, heavy with mold. The floor is slick with ancient slime. The darkness is absolute, pressing against your eyes, warping your mind. Time ceases to exist. Days, or what feel like days, pass in a blur of hallucination and despair. When you are finally hauled back to your cell, assuming you survive, you will emerge altered, thinner, weaker, your sanity frayed to the edge. Humiliation is also a favored tool. Prisoners may be stripped and paraded through the corridors, flogged before jeering jailers. They may be forced to crawl, to beg, to perform degrading acts for the amusement of their captors. Female prisoners, as always, suffer doubly, subjected to public violations cloaked in the language of discipline. The jailers delight in such spectacles, their laughter echoing down the stone halls long after the victims have collapsed in shame. And then there are the punishments administered by the prisoners themselves. In a world where the jailers hold the ultimate power, they often allow or encourage inmates to police their own, step out of line with the wrong faction, cross an influential cellmate, or simply appear weak at the wrong moment. And you will find yourself the target of a communal beating, a stolen meal, a knife pressed to your throat. The guards watch with disinterest or mild amusement, intervening only if the body count threatens their precious head count. Perhaps the most insidious punishment, though, is isolation. Not the physical solitude of the whole, but social exile. To be shunned by your fellow inmates is to lose what scant protection communal life offers. You will find no allies, no shared rations, no place among the huddled bodies at night. In a cell already ruled by suspicion and fear, isolation is a death sentence wrapped in silence. Through it all, you will adapt or you will break. You will learn away every word, every glance, every movement. You will live in a constant state of calculation, gauging the shifting moods of jailers and inmates alike. And when, not if, punishment comes for you, you will endure it with clenched teeth, because in this place, survival is not about avoiding suffering. It is about surviving it one blow, one chain, one humiliating moment at a time. Welcome to the theater. Your performance is expected. It is an inevitability of the human condition. No matter how dire the circumstances, the mind insists on dreaming of escape. In the medieval prison, this tendency is no different. Amid the lice, the filth, the ever-present specter of death, whispers of freedom persist. You will hear them in the dark, muttered schemes, half-formed plans, desperate fantasies spun by men and women with ribs poking through their skin and sores blooming across their bodies. The idea that one might somehow break. Free from this pit, shake off the iron collar of fate and return to the world above, and you will find yourself clinging to such dreams, however absurd, because without them, what remains? Let us begin with the architecture. These prisons were not designed with rehabilitation in mind. They're fortresses of stone, walls thick enough to withstand siege, doors banded with iron, locks heavy and intricate. The windows, if they exist at all, are narrow slits, barred and positioned far beyond the reach of human limbs. The corridors are a maze, patrolled at irregular intervals by guards too lazy to maintain strict routines but too brutal to leave exploitable gaps. Even if you were to somehow slip your shackles, bypass the guards, and scale the slime-slicked walls of your cell, you would still face a gauntlet of locked doors, iron gates, and murderously sharp-eyed sentries. And yet, the fantasies persist. A loose stone here, a forgotten key there, the mythical tunnel beneath the prison whispered of by old-timers who have not seen sunlight in years. Perhaps a bribed guard might leave a door ajar, or a visiting relative might smuggle in a file, a rope, a miracle. Each tale more ludicrous than the last, each one devoured by the desperate inmates, because reality offers so few alternatives. The jailers, for their part, find these delusions endlessly amusing. They cultivate them, in fact, feeding false hope to keep the prisoners occupied. A casual mention of a new guard who might be bribed, a knowing wink about a forgotten passage, a planted rumor of a successful escape that never happened. Meanwhile, any real attempt is met with swift, savage retribution. Those who try and fail, as they inevitably do, are made examples of. You will see them dragged back through the corridors, bloodied, broken, stripped of whatever scraps of dignity they possessed. The punishments vary. Days in the hole, chained and naked in the yard, or worse, paraded before the other prisoners as a living warning. None of them ever try twice. Nor is physical strength on your side. The human body, subjected to months of malnutrition, disease, and abuse, is ill-equipped for feats of daring. Your muscles waste away. Your joints stiffen. Your breath comes in ragged gasps after the smallest exertion. Scaling a wall or overpowering a guard is not simply improbable. It is laughable. Even your mind, battered by fever and despair, cannot sustain the complex planning required for a true escape. What remains is fantasy, fevered and fragile, clung to in the dark like a child's blanket. On rare occasions, there are escape attempts orchestrated from the outside. Bribed officials, forged documents, smuggled tools. These are the domain of the wealthy or the politically connected. For the common prisoner, for you, there remain stories, cautionary tales told in hushed tones. For everyone who buys freedom, a dozen more die trying, betrayed by greedy jailers or their own weakened bodies. And should you somehow, by divine providence or sheer blind luck, manage to breach the walls, the town beyond is no refuge. Word of an escape spreads like wildfire. The guards will scour the streets. Dogs will be set loose. Informants will line the alleys. You, gaunt, lice-ridden, clad in rags, will stand out like a beacon. You will be caught. And when you are dragged back through those iron doors, your fate will make your prior torments seem merciful by comparison. Still, the dreams persist, because they must, because without them, the only future is the slow rot of body and mind within these walls. You will find yourself staring at the stones, fingers tracing for cracks that are not there, ears straining for patterns in the guard's movements, heart racing at each clank of keys. You will lie awake, weaving elaborate plans in the dark. And each morning, when you awake in the same filth-stained straw, the iron door still shut, the rats still scurrying you, will tell yourself, tomorrow, perhaps tomorrow. But there is no tomorrow here, only another day in the cage. Escape is not a path. It is a coping mechanism. And one day, when hope finally dies, you may find the silence that follows more terrifying than the worst beating the jailers could deliver. Because even the cruelest lie is warmer than the cold truth. You are never getting out. If you somehow survive the first days, the first weeks, the first agonizing months within these walls, you will begin to notice a different breed of prisoner. Those who have lingered here far beyond the span of a mortal man's patience or a sane mind's endurance. They are not the freshly broken or the newly fevered. not the wide-eyed newcomers clinging to shreds of hope. They're the long-termers, the fossils of the cell, the living dead who drift through the prison shadows like relics of a forgotten era. And if you are wise, you will study them well, for they're the closest thing to a glimpse of your own future that this place offers. Their bodies tell the tale first. Emaciated, yes, but in a way that speaks of long familiarity with hunger rather than the frantic desperation of the newly starved. Their skin hangs in folds, marked with a tapestry of old scars, puckered sores, and the livid brands of past punishments. Their eyes, if they meet yours at all, are dull, filmed with the cataracts of malnutrition or simply the erosion of spirit. The spark of rebellion, of indignation, of outrage is long gone. They do not protest the jailer's abuse, nor do they flinch at the casual violence of their fellow inmates. They simply endure, because endurance is all that remains to them. Their movements are slow, economical, every gesture calculated to conserve what little energy they possess. They claim their corners in the cell not through force, but through the unspoken deference of others. It is understood. These are survivors, not to be trifled with. They have seen would-be bullies rise and fall, have outlasted stronger, younger men who thought muscle would prevail where patience was truly king. Conversation with them, if it happens at all, is cryptic, fragmented. They speak in half-phrases, in muttered proverbs worn smooth with repetition. Their memories are patchwork. Names, dates, even their original crimes lost to the fog of endless monotony. Ask them how long they have been imprisoned, and the answers will vary wildly. A year, one might say. 5, says another, since the old king's reign, claims a third. Eyes flickering with the eerie certainty of the truly lost. Madness among them is common, but it is a quiet, creeping madness, different from the fevered raving of the newly broken. They hum tuneless songs to themselves, trace endless patterns in the filth with bony fingers, hold whispered conversations with absent friends. They are ghosts inhabiting flesh, and the cell is their tomb. Yet in their own way, they command a strange respect. Newcomers soon learn to heed their silent signals, when to speak, when to hush, when to leave well enough alone. The jailers, too, treat them with a certain wariness. These are prisoners who have weathered every torment the dungeon offers and yet persist. Killing them would be easy, but pointless. Breaking them further is impossible. They are relics of the system's own failure, reminders that even the most perfected cruelty cannot erase every last scrap of life. Some, through rare and curious fortune, are eventually released. A forgotten debt is paid. A royal pardon trickles down the bureaucratic sewer. A clerical error sets the wrong man free. These moments are met not with celebration, but with grim curiosity. The long-termers themselves often seem bewildered, reluctant to leave the only world they now comprehend. To step beyond the prison gates is not liberation, but exile from the one reality they have left. Many die soon after release, unable to adjust, their bodies and minds too ravaged to survive the sudden onslaught of light, air, and freedom. And should you, through whatever combination of cunning, strength, and sheer blind luck, find yourself becoming one of them, surviving past the fever, the beatings, the gnawing hunger, know this: the price is steep. You will pay in memories first, then in speech, in movement, in the very essence of self. The man or woman who entered these walls will fade, replaced by a gaunt specter who exists only from breath to breath, from one scrape of gruel to the next. In a medieval prison, there are no long-term success stories. There are only those who outlive the others. And in a place where life itself is the cruelest punishment, longevity is not a victory. It is the final joke. You have survived a day, a miracle in itself. But as the damp chill of night creeps in through the oozing walls, as the last feeble torch sputters to near death, and as the restless groans of your cellmates rise in a grim nocturne, you will feel the truth settle in your bones. You are not likely to see the dawn. There is no one cause, no singular assassin lurking in the dark. It is the convergence of all things, a symphony of slow murder orchestrated by hunger, thirst, disease, vermin, violence, and despair. Your body is failing. The meager mouthfuls of filth that pass for sustenance have done nothing to halt the wasting. Your limbs are leaden, your pulse thin and erratic. Fever licks at the edges of your mind, blurring thought and warping vision. Each breath scrapes raw your throat, your cracked lips tasting of blood. The lice swarm unchecked, the fleas feast unchallenged, and beneath your skin, the crawling itch of scabies maddens you beyond reason. The cell itself conspires against you. The air is thick, heavy with rot, and the sour tang of the recently dead. You share your straw with rats, who grow bolder by the hour. One bold specimen, fat, scarred, and missing an ear, regards you with calculating eyes, waiting for the moment when you sleep too deeply to fend off its teeth. And sleep is treacherous now. You know it. To drift too far is to risk never waking, to be found cold and stiff come morning. Yet another hollowed husk dragged to the pit. Nor is man kinder than beast. The jailers, drunk and foul-tempered, make their rounds with clubs swinging, seeking some unlucky soul upon whom to vent their frustrations. A poorly timed cough, a glance caught in the torchlight. Such trivialities can earn a beating from which there is no recovery. Meanwhile, your fellow inmates shift restlessly, driven mad by their own hunger and fever. Fights break out over imagined slights. Knives, bones, bare hands, all serve the purpose it would take. Little for you to become the next target. One wrong word, one unlucky scuffle, one thin gasp in the wrong ear. And if all this were not enough, your own mind is turned against you. Hallucinations bloom behind your eyelids. The faces of loved ones long dead, the taunting flicker of the sun you will never see again. Your tongue mutters prayers and curses without your consent. The stone beneath you seems to pulse, the walls to breathe. Madness is not an if, it is a when, and the when is now. So no, by all rights, you will not live to see another dawn. The odds are stacked too high, the enemies too many. You will join the nameless dead, another body for the rats and the flies. Your passing will be marked by a grunt from the jailer, perhaps a jeer from a rival inmate, and then forgotten, as all deaths here are forgotten. And yet, perhaps because the universe delights in cruel ironies, or perhaps because even in this pit life clings with maddening tenacity, this night, against all logic, you will endure. The rat will be distracted by a fresher corpse. The jailer will pass you by, too drunk to notice. The fever will break, just enough for your breath to steady. A fellow prisoner. One of the long-termers will share a scrap of bread, a drop of cleaner water, without demand or threat. And in the suffocating dark, amid the stench and the ruin, your heart will beat on. Dawn will come, pale and gray, its light barely reaching the depths of your cell. And you, filthy, broken, trembling, will still draw breath. One more day won. One more victory in a war with no end. And perhaps, against all odds, the knowledge that you survive where so many did not will spark the faintest flicker of grim pride, a tiny ember beneath the ash. You may be trapped, but you are not yet defeated. And sometimes that is enough. And so, my friend, congratulations. You survived your first day in a medieval prison. You were beaten, starved, gnawed, infected, humiliated, and very nearly dead, but not quite. And if you think this was the worst of it, well, Good news. It only gets harder from here. Another day, another parade of torments. Another game of what fresh horror will the jailer dream up this morning. Another night curled on lice-ridden straw, listening to the soft chewing of rats and the louder groans of men slipping into death. Truly, an all-inclusive experience. And yet, you're still here. You've breathed the foul air, tasted despair, stared down death, and somehow blinked first. And maybe, just maybe, that stubborn spark of life will carry you one more day, and another still. Because if there's one thing this place teaches you, it's that humans are annoyingly hard to kill. Not noble, not glorious, just stubborn sacks of meat clinging to existence out of sheer spite. So, next time you romanticize the grim allure of medieval dungeons, the iron keys, the flickering torches, the noble prisoner unjustly accused, remember this: you would not last a single day. But if by some grotesque twist of fate you did, well, welcome to the long, slow rot. Enjoy your stay.